If he wanted to do stuff for himself, he wouldn't have stood as an MP this time. He wouldn't have stood for Parliament. He'd be much richer, much safer, much happier. But that sense of duty won through. And here we are.
Now, look, let's talk about the political situation, Gawain, because something's happening, right? There's a tsunami coming, and it feels like the silenced majority are ready to burst, are ready to do something different, and actually desperate for change. So I want to hear what you think is possible. But the obvious question is, could Nigel Farage end up being Prime Minister of the UK by 2029?
It's not impossible. I wouldn't say with our political system and our political construction and our constitution that it's likely. But it's not impossible. All sorts of things have to happen for that to happen. But I think that the idea of being, even under these circumstances, being in government, if not necessarily the government, is entirely, in fact, getting to the point of being likely. People might say that the Labour government is having a few trips and starts, but when I look across the front bench of the Labour Party, I cannot see any improvements. I cannot see talent bubbling up on the back benches. Oh, let's replace this useless minister with, oh my goodness, another useless one. They're not even extinct volcanoes, in Disraeli's famous phrase. They were never volcanoes in the first place. And what that is the case now with the Tory leadership. Oh, thank you very much for those pictures. That's very kind of you.
And not one of them, by the way, has ever run a business. Not one.
No, I suppose you could say that Starmer ran a department. That's something in the sense of the
without
CPS,
money though.
But at the same time, he has hopefully some admin skills, but it doesn't seem to be showing just now. But the Tories, I don't think whoever wins the Tory leadership is going to lead the Tories into the next general election. And they too are swimming with talent. Yes, I mean, dare I say, that sort of comment is very easy to say, very, very hard to do. I don't think it's believable. I don't think the idea that he can kick 1 million, where's he going to send them? It's all very well saying this Madapasa chap should be sent back to Afghanistan. What, the Taliban are going to take him? Really? Where are we going to send him? It is. We should not be allowing a single person across the channel. We should be able to be tracking them and stopping them. We should be able to droning the channel and spotting these people with early warnings, all the rest of it. Frankly, one of the great things about this country, and it's good fortune and luck on our part, is the English Channel. We don't have land borders for people to cross, except the Irish one. And it shouldn't be beyond the wits of ourselves to be able to stop anybody coming. And anybody who travels here in an illegal fashion should never be given right to stay. It doesn't matter what, if they come illegally, then they do not stay. And we send them back to France, I'm sorry to say. But not a single person should be able to touch foot on our ground, on our beaches, on our territory, and stay if they have come illegally. If they come through the legal routes, then we go through the asylum process, etc., etc., etc. Now, you have arguments about the ECHR. Yes, of course, as long as we retain our own good sense and our own sense of liberties, which we have had for hundreds of years, by the way. We don't need some gimcrack European construction to give us defensible rights. We've had them for quite a while. But the fact is that we should make it absolutely clear that not a single person who comes in through the seaborne route illegally ever stays, ever again. And if you want to stop the boats, making that absolutely clear and acting upon it absolutely will stop the boats in a very short period of time. Because who's going to bother spending $6,000 getting in a dangerous boat when they know absolutely that if they're picked up, they will be taken back every single time? So
Which
those
is, of
tragic
course,
deaths will stop.
Yep. And it's how Tony Abbott stopped the boats in Australia as well. But look, I just want to dig a little deeper into those comments you made in regards to Robert Jenrick's claim that he would deport 1 million people, mass deportations he believes in. Now, Nigel has been criticized in recent weeks for saying that that is unrealistic. And a lot of the Reform UK base are very disappointed about that because they feel that mass deportations are necessary.
A lot of the Reform base would be delighted if we were to instantly repatriate 1 million illegal migrants from this country. But to make a promise like that without having the practical ability to do so, without having somewhere to send them, without knowing where they are, because most of these people, we haven't the first idea where they are, I think is almost irresponsible politics. Yes, that should be an ambition. But this idea, just do it, no problem. No, it's a huge problem. There are massive practical difficulties. And to just sort of wave it as a promise, I think is irresponsible, deeply irresponsible. An ambition, yes. A promise, no.
Nigel is talking much more about Jenrick, though, than Kemi Badenoch, who I'll come on to in 1 second. Do you think he feels more threatened by Jenrick? Because it's very clear that Jenrick is trying to outflank Nigel on the right. Well, I mean, he's been open about the fact he wants to retire Nigel.
Yes, well, good luck with that, Jenrick. Many people have tried to retire Nigel. It's never quite happened yet, has it? And the idea that somebody who's suddenly, poof, had this great idea that he didn't think immigration was such a good idea 2 years ago, whereas Farage has fought this fight and stood on this beachhead for an awfully long time. I'm sorry that a slightly opaque character with wavy arms and a rapidly slimming belly is not going to threaten Farage on this territory. But I suppose one of the good things is it brings the overturn window across to where we stand. But in the end, are you going to vote for somebody who you don't know actually means it? Yes, he wrote an interesting paper with Neil O'Brien. That's true. But I suspect Neil did most of the work. I just guess that. But I don't think people think that Jenrick is authentic. I think he has seen where the centre of public opinion lies and is chasing that. I don't think it actually is genuine. I just don't. And I don't think other people will too. I also feel that the Tory party, at least the parliamentary Tory party, are deeply uncomfortable with both characters in the final two.
Big time.
But they are where they are. But I think that there will be a great deal of difficulty for either of them to unite. They always talk about uniting the right. Good luck with that, chaps.
Well, at the end of the day, though, there's huge numbers within the Conservative Party, though, in terms of MPs, who actually are not even on the right, and that is the issue.
No, I've always said that from the Reform's perspective, I'd take about 2 to 3% of their peers, 5 to 10% of their MPs, about 20% of their councillors, and about 80% of their membership. Yes. That is the pyramid that interests me. And about 90% of their voters. And I think that is the pyramid. But the rest of them can go hang. I really am not interested in them.
Okay, Kemi Badenoch has overnight received the endorsement of Turning Point UK. Now, this surprised a lot of people, including Maya Tusi, who posted, Kemi is against mass deportation. Yes. She won't commit to leaving ECHR. She bragged about campaigning for more migration as MP. And finally, she insulted Reform UK voters, implying they didn't know what they voted for. But I'll just show you the video that Turning Point UK has released to endorse Kemi. And I'll get you to react off the bat.
I think that a culture that thinks gay people should be stoned is as valid as ours.
We do not want to see teachers teaching their white pupils about white privilege and inherited racial guilt.
People should not be made to feel guilty for questioning levels of immigration, legal or illegal, if it is changing the place they know and love. If people don't want their taxes to pay for foreign criminals to be in our jails or on our streets, those criminals should be removed.
So is Kemi all talk, Gawain?
No, but I think she's brittle. I mean, yes, it's a little bit like the Bible or something of this sort. Whatever you want to believe, you can find a few verses in it that support you. And like many things. I mean, it's the stop clock thing. Yes, she's right on something. She fights the culture war very effectively, and of course, being who she is, it causes a certain amount of kittens on the other side of the argument, because they can't point at her and go, "Oh no, she's a black woman." We can't say that. So it does provide discomfort. But she's also been on the record for supporting far greater legal immigration, for far greater things of this sort. And I think that she has more ideology than Jenrick. But I also think that she is somebody who will enormously, I mean, I think Jenrick is dicey, but the Tory parliamentary party are no great fans of Kemi. Yes, on the other week they voted for her, but I think that was a screw up with the numbers by Grant Shapps, if anything else. But I suspect they have been used to her, or at least we believe her to have briefed heavily against individuals, and her as a leader, I cannot see there be any trust at all. But I find it entertaining that Turning Point have supported her because, yes, as I say, you can pick and choose a few choice phrases, and she's a good dispatch box performer. On housing the other week, she was excellent and ripped Labour a new one when it comes to that. Yeah, and there's no doubt about it. But I think there are plenty of question marks over about how she approaches personal relations. And I think there are equally question marks about how she approaches significant parts of what might say are traditional right of centre viewpoints. So,
Well, yes, I know, for example, she's been very personally rude to Nigel in the past, which is an interesting thing. By contrast,
politics, yeah. I mean, let's not worry about people being personally rude in politics. It's a little bit like that, the famous Not the 9 o'clock news sketch where they're all screaming at each other and one curls over dead. Oh, we're greatly missed. Politics is to a certain extent performance, and we have to accept it as such. Ruderies across the dispatch box and drinks in a stranger's bar. I don't think we should get too worked up about that. I just don't think that that sort of invective.
By contrast, though, Jenrick has said that he'll make Jacob Rees-Mogg chairman of the Conservative Party. Now, the reason that that's significant is Rees-Mogg has been on the record saying he wants a deal with Reform UK. I mean, in his ideal world, he wants Farage and Richard Tice and Lee Anderson in the Conservative Party. I presume you're going to say that there's no chance of any sort of merge or of Nigel joining the Conservative Party. But don't you think to win the next election, there at least has to be a deal, some sort of electoral pact between the Conservatives and Reform UK?
No, I don't. I really don't. I think that right now, we see the Labour's poll rating drop quite rapidly. Most of that is going to Reform. And I think that we are a long, long way away from Labour being anything other than the party of government. We've got another 4.5 years at least. And so I think talk like that is irrelevant. You know, the first time I met Jacob was, first time I met Jacob was about 15 years ago, 12 years ago. And he was saying exactly the same thing then. Oh, but UKIP should just join us. We should unite the right and all the rest of it. Just there, keep quiet and let us professionals take to it. He would take, of course he'd take Nigel. Nigel's the most charismatic politician in the House, the most experienced politician in the House. Of course he'd want him. But why would Nigel want the broken, dissatisfied, dysfunctional Tory party attached to him? Why? Why would you tie your speedboat to that sinking tug? It may be bigger, it may have more displacement, it may have more crew right now, but it's sinking. And why would he touch it?
So, Gawain, what really happened before the election? Because I know you were there. I know that you were very involved in all of the conversations because people like me were despondent when Nigel said he wasn't going to run. So what happened and what changed? Because I'm told you were very significant in terms of getting him to change his mind.
I wouldn't give myself that sort of credit whatsoever. No, I was there. I wouldn't say I was significant. No, I went with him after he made that announcement saying he was not going to stand, and the infamous comments about spending time in Claxon on Friday evening, and the fact that he was living a much more comfortable life. He was having fun on on the TV. He was allowed to travel anywhere in the world. He was allowed to earn money. He was allowed to enjoy himself without people like Matapasa making death threats to him. It was a much more comfortable, much easier life. And he felt, looking at the timescale, that it would be very, very hard indeed to make the breakthrough that he wanted to make, get through it. But in the week after he made that announcement, he was out campaigning. Supporting Richard Tice in Skegness, supporting Lee Anderson in Ashfield. And I watched the conversations where people were coming up to him and saying, "Thank you, Nigel, for campaigning. Thank you, Nigel, for being here. But I've followed you for 20 years. Why are you letting us down?" And that sense of duty, that sense of honor is what carried him through.
Yeah, well, I understand, because I felt let down.
I saw his face. I didn't really discuss it with him. I wouldn't pretend I did. But I saw this. I can only describe it as a sense of duty. And to a certain extent, it was a sense of frustrated duty. Yes, I'm going to have to do this, despite all the downsides, despite everything. Nothing changed with how he was thinking a week before. No change was made in the difficulty of it, in the change to his life, into the reduction in income, and the reduction of liberty and freedom for himself and his family. No change there at all. What changed was him being face to face with ordinary people coming up to him and saying, "Don't let us down. Please don't let us down. We need you." And that is what made the difference.
He's an ambitious man, though, isn't he? And he wouldn't be doing this, Gawain, and you and I both know this, if he didn't think that he did have a chance of entering number 10.
I think his ambition has always been, it's been a mix. Of course, he's a politician. He has personal ambition. Of course he does. But if you think of his 20 years in European politics and fighting it, that ambition meant that he had his mortgage was, he's thrice mortgaged his house and was driving a broken down Volvo estate whose rusted holes were covered in "Keep the Pound" stickers. It wasn't a very lucrative thing. If ambition was about personal wealth and influence and friends with Trump and all the rest of it, he could do that just as well by not being an MP. So his ambition, he's always said, and there is truth in it, there are sorts of people in politics, those who want to do and those who want to be. He's never really wanted to be. And his being is more about what he can do than what he can do for himself. And that has always been the case. If he wanted to do stuff for himself, he wouldn't have stood as an MP this time. He wouldn't have stood for Parliament. He'd be much richer, much safer, much happier. But that sense of duty won through. And here we are.
Is he bruised by how hated he is by the establishment? But first, it is the best time of year, guys and girls. Football is back. So we're talking Premier League in the UK and the US, NFL Sundays and college football Saturdays. And with that comes the glorious grind of fantasy football lineups. You know, it's where your inner manager comes alive. I'm usually quite terrible at setting the perfect roster, but it's always good fun. But what I have to say is that while you're over here making sure your fantasy team is dialed in, don't let your personal grooming become the guy that gets left on the bench. Because let's be honest, no one wants to fumble their grooming routine. So that's where Manscaped's Performance Package 5.0 Ultra comes in, acting as your all-in-one grooming playbook. From keeping things sharp down below with the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra to taking care of those rogue ear and nose hairs with the Weed Whacker 2.0, this is the lineup that will keep you looking and feeling like a champ on and off the field. It will help you feel clean, confident, and ready to dominate your fantasy league. So, let me tell you about these incredible products. The Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra Groin and Body Hair Trimmer is the franchise player of your grooming roster. With precise trimming capabilities, it's reliable, efficient, and gets the job done without fumbling. Whether it's for date night, a weekend tailgate, or just everyday grooming, this is the tool you want on your squad. And then no one wants a surprise ear or nose hair making a guest appearance on game day, so the Weed Whacker 2.0 handles those details like a pro, keeping you neat and ready to go. No missed tackles in your grooming game. The Performance Package 5.0, though, comes with 2 free gifts today. This is so exciting. the Boxers 2.0 Midnight Bravo, and the Shed 2.0 toiletry bag premium gear to ensure you're always ready for action, whether at home or on the road. So join the 10 million men worldwide, including me, who trust Manscape, and get ready for kickoff by heading over to manscaped.com. Use the coupon code Outspoken. You just have to use the code Outspoken and you'll get 20% off and free shipping. Trust me, you'll be drafting the real MVP of grooming this season. So let me repeat it, www.manscaped.com. Use the code Outspoken when you check out for 20% off and free shipping. Stay on top of your grooming game and be ready for anything the season throws your way.
20 years ago, when you first discussed employing me, it was a case of, if we get away with this, we'll never be forgiven. Yeah. We've always known it. Yes, but the bruises, the scars have got scars, and those scars have got scars on top of them. We know, but we also know that what we're doing and what we have been fighting for and what we are trying to achieve for this country is something that, whilst our own personal, in my case, my own family might be annoyed with me for being a domestic disaster, I hope my great-grandchildren will say, well, it was worth doing.
Yes, indeed. What about Nigel the man? Because you've spent more time with him, Gawain, than virtually any other person on the planet. I had the privilege of working with Nigel for a short period of time, about 3 years at GB News. He's actually a very loyal guy, isn't he? What do you think the public don't know about the real Nigel?
I would say not a great deal. That he is a bit WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. The bloke in the pub, the bloke at home, the bloke on TV, the bloke in these film studios, and so on and so forth. There's very little difference between one and another. I think privately he's possibly more thoughtful than you might assume. He's certainly he wears his learning lightly. He reads. He does understand. He has a huge historical hinterland of interest that has gone on. Before he got into politics, he was taking tours with Richard Holmes into the trenches of Flanders and northern France. He took tours to that. He has deep knowledge of a wide range of things, and that is often worn very lightly in his public persona. But I would say, beyond a level of thoughtfulness that you might not know, and you mentioned his loyalty, the fact that I'm still around. And still, I saw him today, despite the fact I was fired only 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. That level of loyalty, it goes both ways. And he feels that way towards the people he's worked with over the years. He feels that way for the people who supported him. But it does go both ways. I don't think somebody can demand loyalty without giving it back. And he certainly does.
And so are you disappointed not to still be with him at Reform UK?
I wouldn't be talking to you if I was still at Reform.
No, of course you don't. You're delighted. You're unleashed.
No, I mean, the point is, I've spent an awful lot of time there. I think that some of the processes that the party is trying to put together in order to be in a position to win that election that you're talking about, in order to be in a position to win the elections in Wales and or do well in the elections in Wales and Scotland coming up and the councils, and to build that bandwagon, build that momentum to go into the next general election. There are ways and means, and if we have a chairman and a party that wishes to prosecute it in a different way, then so be it. I don't have a big issue with this. It seems to me that's absolutely fair. I'm definitely on side, but I'm just not inside these days, and that's I'm comfortable with. I retain my friendships, I retain my loyalties, and as you can probably gather, I'm not somebody who has a great deal of problems with this. I see myself, and I asked Nigel after I was fired. I asked him if he could give me a letter of marque. I see myself as a privateer, pirates on the behalf of this country. Yes, I go and sink ships, but don't sink ours, I think was the general approach. And that's exactly the way I plan to go.
Nigel remains, for someone who isn't necessarily personally particularly engaged with social media, a sensation on the social media, which is a really interesting thing. So this is his latest, which I think is one of the best attempts at summing up the madness of Labour blocking Elon Musk from attending this investment summit this week.
Huge investment summit going on with the Labour government and businesses from all over the world, but they're all big corporates. They don't really invite entrepreneurs. And the one man they haven't invited is the world's most amazing guy, Elon Musk. Whether it's buying this platform, whether it's, the incredible space missions that he's going on, whether it's his cars, whatever it is, if there's anybody who is the world's greatest entrepreneur who should have been invited to this summit, it's Elon Musk. But Labour don't like him. Do you know why? Because he believes in free speech. Well, we can't have that now, can we?
He's a social media sensation, Gawain. Maybe the most unlikely TikTok sensation.
I'm trying to think when he first got a little insight in the working methods not that long ago. And he was the first British politician to understand the power of YouTube and things of this sort. But say I was in Brussels and he was down in Strasbourg and I'd write a press release. I would email that press release from Brussels to Strasbourg, where his office there would print it out and he would scribble edits and fax it to me. And then I would do the edits and send it out as a press release. This is not somebody but I don't think he's ever turned a computer on in his life, but he understands how it works. I drive a car. I'm not a mechanic. I don't need to know how the engine works in order to get from A to B. And you don't need to know the nitty gritty of how do you post a TikTok or how do you, whatever it is, to understand how it works and how to engage with it and how to engage with the public. And this is a mistake. You don't have to be an engineer to drive a car.
No, indeed, a fascinating insight into Nigel Farage. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.